Hi guys, welcome all to the very first episode of the Scatpodcast. I'm your host, Dirty Gary. You might know me from X or Twitter, or perhaps from the other social media / kinky web. It's quite an exciting day for me today because I've been talking about starting this podcast for years. I remember in 2020 I had a conversation with my friend Smatty, who you might know from Twitter. And it's so exciting that it's finally happening today. I almost can't believe it myself. I actually have invested a little bit into the equipment, so I hope that you appreciate that you can hear me well through a new microphone, and I'm recording on a new Mac. So, look, this investment should pay off, hopefully. Look, today is a pilot. Basically, my vision for this is to introduce the podcast, to kind of give you my vision, introduce myself, of course, as well. And then for the second half, I've got some amazing questions that came through Telegram and Twitter. And yeah, that's going to be a fun way to do because my vision is really to do lots of interviews. So what's the best way to start a podcast is to interview myself. It's going to be a lonely, I'd say, an hour in the studio answering these questions, but I'm sure we're going to have lots of fun. Now, I just want to address one thing. So you might be wondering about my accent. It's not really Irish, is it? No, it's not. Well, it's maybe mixed with Irish accent, but I'm actually not originally from Ireland. So that's the first revelation of this podcast. Dirty Gary with a Irish flag on the account, and he's actually an imposter. He's not from Ireland at all. So look, I'm not going to reveal where I'm from yet, but you can all guess, by the accent. All I can say is I spent most of my adult life in Ireland, so I am a citizen of Ireland. But I'll never get the correct accent, so you have to bear with me, and hopefully the accent is not too bad. It's funny because a lot of people texted me, I can't send you the voice message because I have really bad accent. I'm not a native English speaker. So guys, forget about it. We're gonna have guests from different countries with different accents, and that's all good. Look, just to give you my vision for the podcast, it's gonna be about scat. It's that's in the name. But what I really want to do here is to create inclusive and safe space for the community to come. Most of the podcasts, I hope it's going to be interviews with people that I know. So look, I'm in the community for many, many years. I made lots of friends and a lot of people showed interest. So that's quite amazing. At the end of the episode, I might actually say who are the first people that we are talking, to maybe have them on the podcast. So exciting. Wait until the end of the podcast so you can know which of those, you might be following, might be actually on the podcast next. The interviews will be probably most of the episodes. I do want to do a couple of deep dives and panel discussions maybe as well. But guys, it really depends on your support. I work full time. This is completely a new thing for me that I'm going to be probably learning for a while how to record properly. And yeah, if I see that there's lots of support, I'm happy to continue doing this. And yeah, if people are not interested, I'm not going to keep doing it. Now, so that was a little bit about what I want to do on the podcast. Please comment on Twitter, in the Telegram group, send people who you want me to interview, because I really do appreciate that. If you're a content creator or someone in the community with following, or you're doing something interesting, or you just have a lot to say, reach out to me, please. I'd love to have you on the podcast. Now, there's not going to be many rules, but just to set the agenda, we can't talk about everything on this podcast. There must be, few rules, because I really want to keep this on Spotify and on all the major platforms. So we have to avoid few topics. I'm not going to talk about any politics. That's rule number 1. And we have to avoid a few topics to stay on. We can't be really explicit if you want to stay in. So I'm thinking, and look, this is the first episode, so I don't know what's gonna be the final form of the podcast, but there might be two parts of the podcast. One that's gonna be on the on the platforms for everyone to listen for free. And then a second part that might be a little bit more explicit and will be maybe shared only on Telegram or places that will not cancel us, basically. So that's something that might possibly happen, but we'll see how it goes. There's not gonna be any kink shaming as well, so it's completely safe space for you. Like, I'm a gay man, so expect that most of the people that you will hear on this podcast will be a gay man as well, but we'll see. We don't know, there might be some women joining us as well. We'll see how it goes. I have been just joking around with a couple of my friends that we might fly to Mallorca or Mas Palomas and do like a panel discussion. I'm recording this on 8th of April, and there has been a lot going on Twitter, which is like the main base for all of us. Twitter has been removing lots of followers. They have been suspending accounts. The account that I actually created for this Scat podcast has been suspended. It's been only out for 1 week. There has been only a few people following it. I didn't really market it yet, but they already managed to suspend the account. My main account might be suspended as I'm recording this, which would be fun. But that's why I'm recording the podcast now. Like, I think as a community, we need to stick together. We need to be more together, and we can't be relying on just one social media. Look, I have a beef with X as well, because they have been shadow banning scat content for a very long time as well. It's still the best platform that we have, so it's quite difficult to move away from it. On Blue Sky as well, as you might know, but nothing is as good as Twitter. And unfortunately, anytime they might decide to delete us all, like they might just put a ban on scat, so yeah, we need more kind of safe spaces for us. So that's why I'm doing it now. You might be asking yourself, like, who the hell you are? Like, why should be listening to you talking about scat? Like, what gives you the credentials to do this? Now, I've been in the community for quite a few years now. I started, my first account. I think I started when I was 15. Should I be saying this? I don't know, maybe not. But I was on multiple sites. I'm not gonna list them all, but you might know me as Dirty Gary, but I've been publishing under different nicknames on different sites. I was on Thiswit, on Tumblr, Twitter. A few accounts got suspended. The one that I have at the moment is Dirty Gary or Dirty_Gar. My journey on Thiswit was quite interesting because they suspended my account, or they deleted my account without any reason. I don't like Thiswit as much. Somebody actually asked me today in the Telegram group why I'm not on Thiswit. You can't actually create an account if you're based in Ireland. I read some Reddit posts about it. You can't actually create accounts from multiple countries. It seems like you have to be in Australia, but it seems like they're really pushing for us to buy the account. I read a lot of people who uploaded lots of videos and photos, and their accounts just disappeared. It's a dodgy site. I was on it for years and years and years, but it's kind of weird that my content might be still out there and I don't have the access to there, and there's no kind of support. So yeah, that's it's fucked up, like, honestly. Another page that I was on was Tumblr, which was amazing. Like, a lot of people I think were on Tumblr, and it was, I think, the best site for scat content. Like, it was just buzzing those few years that it was allowed, and then very soon after they, I think, got rid of all the explicit content. So Tumblr is gone. And I started with Twitter, I think in 2019, just before COVID. And as I mentioned, like, they suspended my account because it has the word scat in it, and then they suspended another account for whatever reason. There was no reason actually for the suspension. And the account that I have now has been working for a while, so fingers crossed they're gonna keep me. I even got the blue check mark, because there was such a huge shadow ban. Like, my videos would be getting 2 likes, no comments, 200 views, and at the moment I've got around 15,000 followers. Well, it was 15,700 the last time I checked. I'm just after losing 1,000 followers overnight because they just started removing, apparently, bots. But we don't know if it's bots. It's just that Twitter, or X, is removing accounts, and there's really not much that you can do about it. So yeah, that would be about me. Of course, like I'll be listing all my links. What I would also say, if you're not in my Telegram group, like you should definitely join the Telegram group. That's where you will definitely see all my posts. I said Twitter, X has been shadow banning a lot of scat content, so you will not see a lot of content that is uploaded on Twitter. I see a lot of people that I follow. I never see their content anymore. It's a bit shady. So if you really want to stay in touch, join my Telegram channel. There is a discussion group as well, and I might be actually starting a new channel just for the podcast. A lot of people were amazing, and they sent lots of questions, and they were quite, there was lots of engagement about the podcast. So that's really amazing, and that's really something that makes me happy. Now, other than the Telegram channel, I actually purchased, I know it sounds crazy, I purchased a domain, Scatpodcast.com. And I'm no web developer. I have no experience with that, So look, guys, it's work in progress. There's gonna be stuff on it later on, But the most important thing is that we have the domain. It's ours. Nobody else is gonna keep it or buy it and then sell it to us, for lots of money. So I have that domain. There's gonna be more content. The idea is to have like a blog post for each episode, so you can see the content, you can get the links and all of that, But at the moment, it's gonna be quite basic, So just bear with me until it's built a little bit better. But you'll find the links, the email where you can text me. You can find the links for my social media and all of that, So that's something that I want to do. And then another huge announcement, and I can't believe it myself, but last week I actually started a Scatbook page. Now, bear with me because I am not a huge fan of Scatbook. But since Twitter has been deleting accounts, and just by the way, I keep calling it Twitter because for me it's still Twitter. The X, yeah, no, it doesn't work for me. So like I'm gonna be calling Twitter, just so you know. My Scatbook is literally 2 weeks old. I managed to get 30 videos on. They were all rejected by the admins for whatever reason. So I ended up deleting them, uploading them again. If any of my listeners is already on my Scatbook, you're amazing. I know there wasn't too much on it. But the vision for the Scatbook is I have a hard drive full of content since 2016, sometimes even earlier than that. And there's thousands of videos and pictures that probably 10%, 5% of it I uploaded. You probably saw like 1 or 2% of all the content that I have, so it's a lot of content. And the reason that I never did it was, first of all, I don't think that the Scatbook was amazing. I tried it in the past, I found it really clunky, not really great. But we don't have many safe spaces, as I said, so that's why I want to be on Scatbook, because we don't know. So from all of these many videos and pictures that I have, I'll be trying to upload them all, and it's gonna take a while. It's a lot of editing. You know me, I don't want to publish something that is low quality. So I'm gonna be editing all of those videos, uploading them really, really slowly. And, I'm not here trying to make lots of money. I'm doing this, me, like I'm doing these things for free. And my rule and my idea, this is something I learned in the college, is you should be doing 60% for free and 40% should be for the premium, the people who want to pay and want to see more. So that's probably the way we're gonna take it. But we'll see. I can't promise anything. What I can promise now is that I'm gonna work on uploading all the archive videos. There are so many of them, and I already started creating new videos. So you might have noticed that I started recording with a local boy. Let's call him a local boy. So he's gonna be in my videos a bit more now. I have recorded, I think, already 3 or 4 videos. You might have seen one because I used it as a reward, let's put it that way, for submitting your questions. So this is something that we might be doing in the future, that you might get a cool new video first if you submit a question. And yeah, look, let's just put it that way. So you will find me as a Dirty Gary on Sketbook. It's all lowercase, Dirty Gary without the underscore. I was able to actually get that tag, that nickname, because nobody actually claimed it. When I didn't know that Dirty Gary is actually a thing for straight people, so that's why it's not really available for like a website, or on Twitter it was never available. So, but on Sketbook nobody had it. So if you want to find me there, it's Dirty Gary. Now keep an eye on my Telegram group, on my Twitter account as well, because I will definitely be posting some free trial links. So if you just want to see what's in there, you want to maybe quickly watch all the videos and then get out of there, like that's fine as well. Like I'm gonna be definitely giving some free links, because unfortunately Sketbook is not Twitter, so it's slightly different. It's paid. They really motivate the people to put the paid videos and all of that. So look, that's the way it is. Yeah, I'd say that would be all that I had to say for the housekeeping and all the information. And I'm just gonna move on to the question. So I'm just gonna start with the recorded question, so you can take a break from me and you can listen to somebody else. So let's just listen to the very first question here.
Hi. So, I guess my question would be, what's the best um, like diet to have the most satisfying kind of solid shit you want for a good video?
Yeah, this is like it's quite difficult to to answer, because like they're all different. So like my diet would be low carb, and that's just because I struggle digesting carbs. They make me bloated, they make me a bit softer. So to avoid it, I'm on the low carb. So I was actually years ago, I would go on the keto diet, kind of not knowing that one of the best side effects of this, you will get constipated and it will slow down your digestion, and basically it works like magic. So like I would recommend it to anyone who kind of struggles with carbs, but I know a lot of people would just have the completely opposite story, like they would really thrive on carbs. So we are all different. Like for me, carbs are no go, a lot of fiber is a no go as well, but you gotta need fiber, especially if you're on the on the keto diet, because you can't be just eating fats and protein. Like your cholesterol and your proteins would just be too high. So you need to get some good quality fiber, but you kind of have to be careful what you're eating, because there are some vegetables and fruits that might be triggering your IBS, or they might be triggering, or they might be giving you a bit looser, runnier shit, which is something I don't want. But yeah, no, look, this is really individual. Another thing that I'm gonna say is I take lots of supplements to support my liver function, because liver is really important for good digestion. But I'm not gonna go into all the supplements that I take, because like there could be another episode. So I might actually record actually more into this later on. But yeah, really great question. Let's move on to the next one.
Hi, I think my question would be, how do you feel knowing all these people are following you because they want to see you pooping and messing your underwear and stuff like that? Does it make you feel good? Do you feel horny as well, knowing? Because me personally, every time I expose myself like this, I get very horny knowing someone's like jerking off into it. So that's something I want to know. How do you feel about it?
Yeah, it's that's an interesting one. So I actually, because I do record so much, when I'm recording, I'm not really horny. Like it's really like I'm trying to, like it's a job for me. So like not paid one, but I really try to just focus on recording, creating a good content. So at the moment, like I usually don't get too horny. Like when the camera is not rolling, like that's a different story. But I don't actually have the exposure kink. So like I do enjoy the interactions, the likes, the retweets and all of that. I wouldn't say that I would get like the exposure king, so like you see, like you don't really get to see my face and all of that. But I'd say like that makes for more kind of sustainable content. And of course, like I do enjoy the attention and all of that. But it's not something that I really think. Like I don't know, because I've been doing it for so long, it's something that I don't really think about too much. Um But yeah, really good and interesting question. And I see a lot of people who get the kick from the exposure, from being watching all of that. Like, I do enjoy it. It's not the main thing I do it. Actually, just the reason when, like I should have mentioned this, like I started recording myself, I'd say 15 years ago, because there was no content that I'd like, like back then it was a lot of 60, 50 plus year old people posting these videos on this within different sites, and I just find it, I wanted to, there was no content that I wanted to watch, so I kind of have to create the content myself. But yeah, it's the main king for me is not actually being watched. So yeah, let's move on to another question.
Hey Gary, this is Alexander. I'm from Guatemala, and I'm just very excited about the chance of course, seeing the video that you're sending, but also I think this type of dynamics is really cool for people like us who have a fetish that it will be considered, I think, forever as taboo or something uncommon or something weird. It's really refreshing to have this space to talk about it openly. So, my main question to you was, what age did you find out that you like to play with the shit, record yourself taking a dump, doing that stuff? To me, was when I was, I think it was a ninth grade. I was like 16 years already, and just got really super hard by taking a dump, you know. And I just realized that it was that moment I realized it's gonna be something deep and meaningful somehow in my sexual life. But yeah, anyways, I just want to know, when did you realize and how did you realize about it? How was the experience? How did you enjoy that or process that feeling? Thank you for your time, and take care.
Well, you've got a really beautiful voice, I have to say, Alexander. Yeah, no, like, look, this is a good question, because I actually wonder myself a lot, like, how do people get this kink, and in my own case, I actually had an accident when I was around, I think, 8 years old, so I can't really describe everything that happened because for reasons. But I was walking from home to from school, and yeah, I had an accident, and that really, I think, kind of triggered the kink in myself. But I always wonder, like, is this something kind of genetic or something that you're born with, or is it something that you kind of develop? So I did a little bit of reading on this, and most of the people, or most of the experts, would kind of agree that there's two different like triggers. Could be like early development trigger or like a trauma, which is probably my case. And the other option would be probably exposure, so building it up. And like, I hope that we can talk a lot about this on my podcast. Definitely something that I'm really interested in, like how people get to have this kink. And yeah, my case was really early on. I had this accident that triggered something, and a few months or a year or two after, I really started being interested in it. Once the initial kind of trauma was gone, I started being interested in experimenting myself. And like, it has been a journey. Like, I remember first I would only watch like underwear messing videos. I wouldn't be interested in seeing shit. I wouldn't be interested in seeing eating, especially. That would really kind of gross me out. And it has changed over the years. Like, it has changed a lot, and I'm much more interested in different types of scat content than before, and yeah, the king just grows on me, which is amazing. And I think a lot of people have the same experience, that like you start with one branch of scat and then you end up enjoying the other ones as well. So yeah, no, it's a brilliant question. Look, hopefully the future guests on this podcast will have a lot to say about that. And yeah, it's something that really interesting. I think for a lot of us, it's quite interesting. So let's move on to the next question.
Describe to us the tastiest turd you've ever eaten, and describe to us the how the situation went.
Yeah, no, unfortunately, like, I'm feeder, not eater. Like, I don't have much experiences to describe here. What I can say, I fed a couple of people. They seem to enjoy it quite a lot, but where I live, I don't have that many opportunities to meet that with that many people. And I became quite lazy as well, after COVID and everything. I don't think that I'm as maybe open to having so many opportunities to feed someone. I never actually really ate, so maybe in the future we'll see. But yeah, at the moment, like, there's not much I can say on this question, so let's just move on to the next one.
So my question to you would be, what is your all-time favorite position to share? Like, what feels the best for you?
So I believe this was my friend CJ. I hope that he's okay with me revealing him. He's on X as well, or Twitter, so you can go and follow him. I'll drop his his account down there. Yeah, what a question. Like, look, as I said, I try to record every single time I go. So I most of the time just kind of worry what's gonna look good on the camera. I have a couple of positions that, like, there would be few few opportunities for me to kind of enjoy without the cameras, like kind of day or night off. And usually I'm quite boring, so I would just kind of lay in the bed on my back and I would just go like that, and sometimes wearing underwear, sometimes without it. That's what I kind of enjoy. Yeah, no, there's something like interesting for me to do it in different places as well than the bathroom. But look, I am a really boring person. But yeah, so that would be probably, the position. Like, there's some positions also that make it a bit awkward to go. Like, I'm quite constipated, so some positions, like lying on my belly, for instance, can make it really difficult. So being on my back is usually more like, it's a bit easier for me to push. But yeah, like, I don't know, maybe this was like something, that I always had, that I kind of like messing in bed, for whatever reason, but yeah, really boring answer. I'm so sorry, CJ. Let's let's move on to the next question.
My question for you is, have you ever done a scat threesome?
So not actually a threesome. I did a scat party. I think there was around like 8 people. And yeah, it was a lot of fun. Like, I hope that I'll get to talk about this a little bit more, maybe in the future. But it's been a ride. I did it only once in my life, but it was a really good experience. A threesome, I think, would be quite interesting. But you know what it is, like, with multiple people, it's really difficult to kind of sync. Like, it depends. Like, what's your expectation? Like, do you want to feed? Do you want to eat? Do you want to whatever you want to do? It's difficult to sync 2 people. Then 3 or 4, it's almost impossible. Like, on the scat party, like, there would be people. Some of us would be watching. Some of us would be feeding. Some of the guys would be eating. Like, there would be different kind of things going on at the same time. So. But it's quite difficult. I remember I was there and I couldn't go because, like, nerves probably. But yeah, it's a good question. Like, I hope that I can get to talk about this.
Aside from Scat, have there been any other kings that you wanted to try out?
Yeah, no, like, again, quite boring person here. So apart from those scat adjacent kings like fart and piss, I'd say there's not much that really tickles my fancy. But I'm open to lots of kings. Like, I would be with guys, that had feet kink, and that's completely fine. Like, it doesn't do much for me, but like, I'm happy to participate in most of the things. I'm quite open-minded, but there would be very few limits that I would have. But at the same time, like, there is nothing that really gets me as excited as scat. I know there's a lot of overlaps in the scat community. So yeah, let's hope there's gonna be more interesting people on the podcast that will talk about this. But yeah, I have to say, like, things that I'm really bad would be anything verbal with like a role play or anything like that. Like, I usually really struggle with that. So yeah, I did some bondage in the past, some BDSM, domination mostly, but it just kind of doesn't stick, with me. Like, it's just not something that would really excite me. Yeah, let's go to the next question.
Hi, are you guys Easter egg hunting brown chocolate Easter eggs in each other's butts today? That's my question.
Yeah, we took a video of that, so I'll send you the footage later. Let's go to the next question.
I think you probably already answered this question, but how do you get your logs so huge? I've been trying to do that on my own because I think it's really sexy, but I am not sure how to go about doing that.
Yeah, so it's a complex question. So diet is I think the most important part of it. So for me, the low carb is what's working. Different people might have different diets that they follow that work for them, but you can use Imodium as well. The drug might be sold under different names, and wherever you are, like in different continents probably, but Imodium slows down your digestion and makes you a little bit more solid. It's anti-diarrhea drug, so a lot of people in the community would be using this. And I have to admit it, I used it in the past. It's really helpful if you want to be, attending, a party hookup or something. You have to learn how to use it as well. So, there are downsides to it, and you can overdo it, you can get too constipated and all of that, So, and the pill kind of work differently for everybody. So again, we could have like a full-on conversation about this, using it, but it's something that a lot of people would use. Another thing is like, the how do you actually make the turd massive? And that's really like, it depends on your biology. There are actually conditions like if you get really kind of thin poop, it can be a sign of something being a bit wrong down there. So like everyone should be certain size, but to make it really, really thick, that is like difficult to push it out. That usually needs, you need to meet few conditions. So that would be constipation and maybe holding it for a couple of days. That kind of helps. So you get basically a couple of bowel movements in one. Now, I'm not a doctor and all of these things, they usually say, don't do this, like just go to the bathroom when you need to go. There's a lot of people that I know and I follow that they'll be holding it for days, and it would be almost like a competition, like how many days you can hold. I can maybe hold 2-3 days. That would be kind of the maximum, unless I use Imodium or something like that, or unless I get really, really constipated. But what I found is like, even with Imodium, it doesn't really increase the size. Like the longer it stays inside of you, the more it shrinks, because the more kind of moisture your body can extract. So it's a bit tricky, like you might do everything right and it just doesn't happen, like that's okay, so. But I would almost say like using Imodium can sometimes make it, that the turd is not going to be as impressive, compared to when you're on a diet that is kind of designed to make you a bit firm. What you can do for the bulking, like there's two kind of things that you can do. Like there are bulking agents, so like fiber would be an example of that. But again, some people can be sensitive to having too much fiber. Some people might be less sensitive to certain types of fiber, but fiber is a bulking agent. And another thing is like anal stretching. So you can actually stretch, so people who do lots of fisting would be kind of stretched out inside. There would be a little bit more space for all the turds to kind of form. And that could actually help you, So some of the guys that I follow, they have really impressive turds, they would be into fisting, or they would be using lots of toys that kind of stretch them internally. But again, I'm not a doctor, and like you shouldn't take any medical advice from me, but like I know some people have the strategy. I personally don't do any anal stretching. I'm actually 90% top. Wouldn't do lots of bottoming. So this is something that I don't have that much experience, but I know some people swear by it. Or inflatable butt plugs, that would be also something that people use. Okay, let's move on to the next question.
I had a question, and that was if you had a favorite kind of texture of like shit that you thought was really masculine and turns you on the most. And secondly, how easy do you think it is for you to find other partners to play with in your kind of local area? Big fan, by the way, you're really hot.
Well, yeah, no, like I already said, like I'm a fan of constipated turds, that's what's sexy to me. I wouldn't get too aroused by, kind of diarrhea, softer, that doesn't do it for me. But I know there's lots of people who enjoy that stuff, so that's completely fine. But yeah, no, there's something about like healthy, firm shit, if I put it that way. So that's the sexiest for me. And yeah, look, everybody has different preference. This is just me. So like what you see in my content, that's kind of the preference that I have. And like if it comes out from a sexy man's ass, like that's even better. And the second question, like, it is really difficult, like, again, something that we can talk for hours about, like, how do you find people, different size, different strategies as well. I didn't use much. Like 15 years ago, I think that I was on Scatboy, and there would be a couple of like profiles that you can find. Again, they were all kind of different ages than myself, so I didn't have much luck with that. But I found maybe one or two guys, what we did, maybe we met a couple of times, and then we would exchange emails, and that was 15 years ago. So just mind you, there was no social media back then, or almost no social media. And later on, I would use Grindr as well. So I would usually have two profiles on Grindr. There would be one kind of vanilla Grindr, with my face profile and everything, and then one that would have, certain emojis or tags that would kind of let you know that I'm looking into maybe a bit kinkier stuff, and I would just quickly kind of qualify the leads, if I put it that way. And you would find a lot of, like, there is a lot of people that are interested, but they might not be ready to do something. And where I am at the moment in Ireland, it's people are really flaky. There is still a lot of homophobia, and I think that people are still quite ashamed to even be gay. So like, good luck to me to find someone who's gonna be willing to do anything scat. But yeah, no, it's really difficult. What I would just suggest, look on Twitter as well. Like that's a really good place. But on the other hand, like, I find it a bit tricky because a lot of people treat Twitter as Grindr. It's not really a hookup site. Like you should respect people as well. But like you will find a lot of people who would be interested. Like if you find someone in your area, like that's the best way, because that's the site where people are the most open-minded, I'd say, and you'll get the least kind of trouble as well, because you might get some trolls on Grindr, and you might get some rude people, and you kind of have to be careful as well. Like the people that you're meeting from Grindr, you do have to protect yourself. So yeah, look, that's the best advice that I can give you. There's probably gonna be more people on the podcast that's gonna give you better advice on this. Let's move on to the next question, actually.
What is it about scat that turns you on most? For me, it's the fact it's such a taboo, and it's usually such a private thing, and you're actually getting a glimpse in.
Yeah, exactly. Like you said it really well. Like it's a taboo. Like it's intimate. Like there's nothing more intimate than seeing someone go number two. And sometimes I wonder, like, if we lived in different society, like if scat would be still so interesting, like if let's say defecation and going number two would be something that you see on the streets or in the forest or something, like a bit more savage type of society. I wonder, like I actually wonder, those parts of like Africa where people live a little bit more kind of simple life, and they maybe don't have sanitation and all of this, I wonder if like the scat king is such a thing for them. I think like if we saw defecation on the streets and everything, if that would be completely normal thing, like that would take away a lot, like for me at least, it's all about the intimacy. What else is so intimate than seeing someone going, poop, seeing this, something that like a lot of people pretend that it doesn't happen, it so I'd say that would be it, and even with the other kings, I really like the intimacy, like, observing someone doing something that is inappropriate that you shouldn't see, like that's what makes it hot for me, at least, that's for me. So look, I hope that on the podcast we might have a lot of guests, talking about this, something that I'm really interested. But I kind of feel like it is, it might be actually, there might be different reasons for people, but I'd say the intimacy is a huge part of it. And yeah, I think that was the last question. So I'm just going to move on to the text question or the stuff that people wrote. Let me just get here just a second. So let's just go and start with Twitter. So actually on Twitter, people, post it publicly. So I'm gonna read their tags for their nicknames as well. So the first one is from Norse Twink, which I'm a huge fan of Norse Twink. So he asked me, what would be your ideal scat related scenario? In other words, what scat fantasy turns you on the most? Look, I'd say, doing like only two of us, that would be probably the perfect. The threesome and the scat parties, that can be interesting as well. But like, I like the intimacy of like being just me with someone else that I find attractive. I actually even going, like, just observing the person going to the bathroom, or him doing it on me or something like that. Like, it's pretty basic what I want to see, but I just love observing, the ass opening and the third going out and all of that, so I'm pretty basic, I have to say. Like, it's a great question, like maybe because I don't have that much experience with other people, if I date, maybe I could be able to give you better answer. But yeah, like all of these things, like I actually don't really like the idea of me of eating or feeding is not really one of the strongest kind of turn-ons for me. So it would be probably just observing someone doing something like that, like, maybe him going on top of me or something. Next question is from Madlad, and he's asking your favorite type of shit, texture, color, etc. So again, I think that I answered this already. It's firm locks, constipated, but like I don't also want to be too choosy. Like if I would be with someone, it can be kind of like whatever texture, as long as not too runny, too kind of diarrhea-ish. I do prefer smooth, when I don't see like bits of food and stuff like that. But look, like that stuff happens, so that would be probably it. What I like about firm shit is also the smell is a bit different. I don't know if you notice, but when you have runny shit, it's slightly different. You can kind of smell a little bit of different components. But once the shit has been baked, as I say, for a couple of days, like it is much more pleasant smell for me as well. I'm not a huge fan of smell or taste. For me, it's mostly visual. So if the shit is nice and smooth, one color, light brown, dark brown, that would be the preferred texture. BRS said, I'd love to know how you keep such a good consistency of your turds and how you keep them so firm. Look, I sometimes don't know myself. Like it's quite difficult. You have to stick to a good diet. You have to be quite, you have to have a self-control as well. I'd love to sometimes just like, I don't drink any alcohol, for instance, because alcohol is a big problem for me. So I wouldn't have a pint or something. The self-control needs to be there. I'm not saying that I'm always 100%, but yeah, if you stick to good diet that works for you. And one thing that I didn't mention, like, a lot of movement as well. So like they say, oh, movement, it's good for your bowel movement and everything. So some people would be like, oh, it's better if I don't move as much because that can trigger. I find it for myself, it's better if I move a little bit, and somehow that just works for me. But for some people, they might get a bit more constipated if they maybe sit around a little bit more and if they don't drink as much, But for me, I find it if I go to gym, if I have good diet, I don't drink with my meals, but I drink between my meals. I try to have 3 like larger meals than having like a constant snacks, around me like that. That's usually what makes me a little bit softer. So yeah, large meals, don't drink with them, drink kind of in the gaps. And yeah, good sleep as well, good exercise, and like stress is a huge part of it. So like if you can remove stress from your life, like which is really easy to say, difficult to do, that would be something that helps a lot. Few questions from Telegram as well. What do you find the most erotic about pooping? I already answered that, so it's the intimacy. It's something that we shouldn't see, it's sharing it with someone as well, like going in front of someone, like that's something that really is the most erotic part of it for me, I'd say. Are you proud of your scat king? Have you ever tried to stop engaging with it because of shame or embarrassment? So this is a really good question, and I think that we're gonna talk about this a lot. Now, what I'm gonna say, I'm gonna try to answer it really quickly because we are running out of time. But I don't think that I ever tried to actively stop it or remove it from my life. It's not healthy. Like, don't try to suppress any kinks or any parts of your personality, your sexuality. It usually backfires, so I'm not a huge fan of it. And like, this podcast as well is meant to really open the conversation, for people to listen to me, and like, I really hope that people will listen to this like on their Friday nights when they're maybe like, driving to meet someone and they just want to get inspiration. They want to maybe get a little bit uplifted by listening to someone to talk about scat, and listening to more people to talk about it, so we don't feel as alone, so I really feel so sad if you had to go through maybe some sort of, repression, or if you try to stop you enjoying this. That's not good. Like, try to just embrace it. Like, of course, like, you wouldn't go and talk to your colleagues or your friends or your family about this. Like, you kind of have to keep it for yourself, but try to find the safe spaces to do this, I find as well, like, this is a really good question because like that gives me so much inspiration. But I find it like the older you get, the easier. So I don't know what's your age, like, I don't know nothing about you, unfortunately, but the older you get, the easier it is to maybe accept it, just to feel a little bit more at ease with this kink. And yeah, unfortunately, what I see, and that was also what I said, when I started like exploring the content online and everything, like, most of the people who would be recording would be 50, 60 plus, because these guys already had everything figured out. They had their own families, like, they felt secure at their lives, to do this, to post themselves publicly. And I find that the young guys in their early 20s have a lot of shame, a lot of embarrassment. Like, they upload something online and then they delete it immediately. And there was one guy recently on Twitter that uploaded lots of cool videos, and a lot of people interacted with them. And then he was putting his face there. The videos were amazing, but I noticed he would upload something and then the videos would disappear. The account would be completely empty. And I started following this guy, and after a while he posted like, how do you guys do it like that? How do you keep these videos online after you jerk off? Because I get the post jerk of clarity. Like, maybe he worded it in a different way, but I have the urge to delete everything. I'm embarrassed, and I just told him like, look, just try to kind of take it easy. Like, I remember myself when I was younger, when I would come, I would feel so embarrassed. I would like close all the sites and I would be like, I'm deleting everything from my history. I will never log in into this again. It's not healthy. So just try to practice of, this, it's hygiene really. Like, you come and then you maybe for 5 minutes, you keep maybe watching something, related, or like, don't close everything. Don't beat yourself about it. Don't be ashamed. Like, it's just not healthy. And the more you kind of focus on like, this is okay, like, I don't need to feel ashamed about this, like, the better it gets. Like, trust me, like, it takes a while, but it gets easier as you go. And repressing your kinks or your sexuality is never a good idea. Look, text me if you have more questions. Like, I'm happy to talk to you about this, and we can have a conversation about this. I'm sure that this will come back again. And yeah, look, it is what it is. One thing that I also wanted to say, I do feel for guys who are young and they upload something because maybe somebody asked them. And I'm not a big fan, as I said. I don't like when people download videos and when they re-upload them without the consent of the person, So I think that we should, as a community, we should maybe embrace a little bit like, look, don't share stuff that is not yours. If you don't know the person didn't give you the consent, don't share those videos, because I see a lot of really young guys in their maybe early 20s. These videos will resurface every now and then. I think that these guys might not be, enjoying that we are sharing these videos. So what I would say, like, this is not helpful. Having all of these older guys posting these videos like of younger kids, who might be still getting comfortable with this kink. I just say like, we shouldn't be doing that. Like, I don't want to be moralizing anyone, but I find that this might make it worse for people. Like, look, maybe they posted something, they just wanted to see how it goes, and then if so many people download it and keep circulating it on the internet, this can be really discouraging for a lot of people. So I think that if you do a little bit less of that, that can help people to feel a bit more comfortable with the kink as well. I don't know, maybe I'm wrong. Another question here: do you ever stay in toilet longer hoping a hot colleague or friend comes in for a dump? Do you enjoy hearing them or look at the ball after they leave? Great question. Definitely did it. What I'm gonna say, I work from home, so I don't have that many opportunities. What I do, I go to a gym. It's a student kind of gym, so that's amazing. And I'm not gonna lie, it is tempting, if I see a hot guy walking into the cubicle, to stay, maybe listen, maybe wait for them to leave, check if there's any, maybe they didn't flush or something like that. I never did any farming. It would be amazing to have somebody on the podcast who does lots of farming. It's something, that I think is an interesting kind of side, not really talked about as much. So if you know someone who's into farming, let me know, and I would love to have them on the podcast. But yeah, so definitely, this is a really hot scenario, and I read a lot of stories, going for a fun trip with mates, and then, seeing them, hearing them, or whatever, going to the bathroom after them, that's really hot. Didn't have that many opportunities in my life, unfortunately. I am in a lot of kind of female environments, unfortunately, so the gym would be the only opportunity for me to kind of explore this. And one thing that I'm gonna say, I really hate mixed bathrooms, because that's a huge turnoff for me. So I do love pure men's spaces, no offense, but yeah, no, for me, even if I walk in the nature and there would be the spots where people kind of go poop on the hikes and stuff, and if I don't know if it's a hot sexy guy, I'm not interested. Doesn't do anything for me. So great question. There's definitely interesting connection there. Another question: what to do when you get a dirty surprise from a guy who's not necessarily into it? So I don't know if you meant it in a way that you are fucking this guy and then it gets dirty, or if you meant probably you meant it in this way, because I wouldn't understand it in a different way. But look, in my life, whenever I had relationships, so as I mentioned, I would be the top in majority of my relationship. Actually, all my relationship, I would be top, and you kind of have to have the conversation. I don't like when guys douche. It just kind of makes the feeling be different, especially if you're barebacking. So I would always discourage douching, and I would just encourage them to go raw. If something happens, I just try to make them feel that completely fine and safe, there's nothing to worry about. I wouldn't tell them look, I really enjoy it, especially if I'm not ready to kind of talk about this kink. I wouldn't encourage it, but I also would try to make them feel really at ease and supported when that happens, and I think that everyone should do that, it's just a natural thing. If it happens, it's a bonus for us, I'm not gonna lie. But yeah. Next question: have you ever shit into another guy's hole and then had him shit it back out? So I don't know how that would work. Seems a bit complicated, but seems like a cool idea. So we might actually try it out, with my fuck buddy, and we'll see how that goes. At what age did you discover scatological pleasure, and how was your first experience? I already talked about it, so I think that there would need to be a separate kind of restricted episode only for people who are really interested. As I said, I was very young, so I don't think that this is something that we can really talk about. But yeah, it's a journey, as I said. I love the wording, by the way, scatological pleasures. Amazing. That's a great way to put it. It was a journey, as I said. It would start with messing, going underwear pooping, and then actually before even I started that, I would just be putting socks, rolled socks in my undies, and walking around like this, first in my room, and then maybe going to the kitchen like that when nobody was home, and then maybe putting a roll of socks when I go to the garden or to the park or stuff like that. And then little by little, I would start experimenting, I would, first of all, like I would maybe experiment in the bathroom, so I would try to maybe hold, I would start with lots of toilet paper. I would be kind of afraid to touch poop, like when I was small, and then it all kind of developed, so little by little I just started discovering more and more things in Scat that I started enjoying. When I started watching the videos, as I said, first would be only underwear messing. I would not want to see what's inside, which is really strange because now I'm complete opposite. I want to see what's inside. If I see video that doesn't have the reveal, it's if it's underwear messing, I would really get frustrated that I didn't see it. But I completely understand that there's like boundaries, and a lot of people who are in the ABDL community, they just don't want to see what's inside. So I respect that. Like we are all, we all have different boundaries, and they might change with time, but yeah, that's how it was for me. Next question: how hard was it to connect with other people, or other people with the same interest as Scat, since it's the most taboo fetish? It's difficult. As I said, in the research, it comes as the most taboo legal kink. So it will always be stigmatized. It will always be difficult to find people, and maybe that's part of the fun. So as I said, you can have different strategies. You can go Grindr, or you can maybe first find like a stable partner that is open-minded, and then after you build the trust, you can maybe start talking about different things and different preferences, and see how the conversation goes. But it is quite difficult to say. Like you might struggle to find people, which is completely understandable. It will never be like, I'm so sorry to say, like I know that I'm here promoting it, but it will probably never be fully accepted. You can probably never, come out to your family like, I'm gay and plus I like this. Like usually, like I don't think that it's gonna happen, but it's great if we can at least, maybe come out to our partners or live openly, within our communities. That would be like great thing to happen, I think. Another question here, I think this is the second last. Is it hard for you to poop with or in front of others, and how do you relax yourself enough to do so? Yeah, great question. Like, look, nerves, as I said, like huge part of it. If you're nervous, like you usually can't go. It takes lots of practice. Like, the first few experiences, if like, first of all, like I'd say play alone, just get comfortable with yourself, your own body, and kind of learn the signals of your body, and once you're comfortable with that, then try with people. And what I would say, like one of the worst thing is like when we actually meet up with people that have the same kink, we go straight into doing something together, which is quite extreme. Like it's something that like you never did before, so like you will be nervous by default, and that's completely normal. I'd say, like if this person is really nice and they're open to it, maybe try to just go for like, a walk or like a date, or maybe just chat with them in person, like meet them in person, so you can kind of get used to them a little bit better. Go for a fun trip in the mountains, spend maybe a few days like together if you have the time. But like I know a lot of people won't have the time, or like a lot of people just want to meet, do the thing, that they feel is so exciting, and then like leave and never see you again. And I think that's where the problem is, because you might need a little bit more time to get comfortable, so it gets easier with practice. That's probably, the best way to answer it. And okay, there's actually a couple more questions, so let me go back to one of my favorite boys asked, what Scat related practices do you still need to do? So I never did eating, so that would be one that I have to do. Farming is another one that I mentioned that I never done, and I think that's pretty much about it. I tried pretty much everything, but I do tend to stick with those things that, feel the most comfortable, so that would be the stuff that you see on my account. Yeah, so that's pretty much it. And I'm totally open to it. So like if anyone wants to give me suggestions what to do, I'm always up to it. Here's my question. Does your friend know anything about your scat fetish? So I actually know like what do you mean, but if you mean my partner, like that's maybe a story for another podcast episode, so we'll talk about it later, hopefully. There's another one two more from Twitter actually that I just see now. So AH9785 on Twitter asked, when did you start to get into scat? Personally, I started when I was really young. It's the same for me. So as I said, hopefully one day I'll talk about this a little bit more. But we are kind of running out of time, so I'm just gonna leave it there. Very young, 8 years old was the first experience that I had. And the last question from the Apollo the Dragon. This is kind of generic, but how did you get into this kind of content? Love your vids, by the way. So, like I already mentioned a couple of times, but what I maybe didn't mention is like, it was like, I remember the first time I was Googling this, and finding something back then on the internet was really difficult. But maybe this is not what you actually ask for, but I'm gonna give you this answer anyway. I remember that I would jerk off, but just before reaching the the point where I would come, I would switch to something else, usually like a straight vanilla porn, just so I wouldn't feel so kind of embarrassed. So this was when I was really, really young, and it's a long time ago. But yeah, no, there was like definitely like a little bit of shame involved as well in my story. So look, that's the last question that I had. Guys, this was really interesting experience. I'm not gonna lie, I have re-recorded the beginning and a couple of parts of this podcast, because it just didn't feel right. And I just hope that with practice I'm gonna get a little bit better, and then you can really enjoy this content a little bit more. And for the big reveal, I'm at the moment talking with my friend Smutty with 3 T's that you might know from Twitter. He was on Blue Sky. He recently withdrew from both sides, from both platforms, and he's not there anymore. So I'm trying to bring Smutty for a first exclusive interview. He's the guy who's doing the Scat magazine as well, or he was doing it. I'm not quite sure if it's actually continuing at the moment, but amazing guy with a lot of followers on Twitter, over 20,000 followers on Twitter before he deleted his account last year. A lot of people were asking me about him, so I'm in touch with Smutty. He's doing all good, and hopefully we're gonna have him on the next episode or the next. I'm planning a few more episodes with other people. I don't want to reveal them yet, but stay tuned. Once we have the guest approved, I'm gonna post it on Telegram and probably on Twitter as well, so people can send questions. The voice questions are preferred. It's a podcast at the end of the day, so if we can hear you, like, it's better. Like, look, different accents, different levels of English are welcome, because like myself, I'm not a native speaker. So like, if you don't feel comfortable, please be encouraged by the fact that I'm running this podcast. It makes me feel better about myself if I hear different accents. The ones that we got today, all beautiful accents, I have to say, all amazing to listen to. So like, if we can get more of this, it would be really amazing. There's gonna be always like a small kind of gifts or rewards, if you contribute. So keep an eye on the Telegram group. It's the best place to kind of get the updates. Now I've got another idea for the next 1 or 2 episodes. I want to talk about how to actually, how to maybe have the conversation with someone that that they are not into this stuff, and how to maybe like talk to them, how to come out to them, how to have like this open conversation, and for the person who's receiving this information, how to react and how to really understand this kink. Because what happens in a lot of cases, if you come out to someone, they might have like some sort of a certain vision of how this kink is, so I maybe just want to talk to people who are not really part of this kink, for them to understand a little bit better, if they have a friend or partner who's into this, like how they should understand this kink and what it really means, and what are all the different kinds and flavors of this kink. So that would be something that I would love to do. And as I mentioned, I'd love to have a discussion with a couple of creators on what's the future of scat, so we're kind of in a dangerous territory when a lot of accounts are being taken down, suspended, and all of that, so like, I've been having this conversation with many people over and over and again, and it's like, how do we actually create this community that is safe and it's a safe space for us that's not going to be removed? So that would be maybe something that I would love to have a panel discussion. So if you know someone who would like to get in touch with me and maybe join this episode, that would be amazing as well. Look, guys, that's the end. Thank you so much for listening. I hope that there's gonna be a load more episodes to come, and I can't wait. Speak to you soon.